Of course, one of the most powerful tools of the moderation process is to detect a problem in either our teaching, in our learners' learning, and in our assessing. And of course, the entire teaching, learning, and assessment process needs to always be improved. So the question we've got to ask is, did the moderation process we've just been through detect a problem? Now, even if the answer is no, and there's no serious issue, you still need to be able to give feedback to the assessors and the teachers, and the moderator needs to provide this. So we need to provide feedback on the stages of the process and also give constructive comments and recommendations for improving the process. But more importantly is when the actual moderation process detected a problem. So the first thing we need to do then is identify firstly the problem and then the stage of the problem. Now, sometimes it's not easy to detect the problem, and by identifying the stage of the problem, this can help us. So let's look at each of these stages. Well, the pre-marking stage is easier. It's easier at the pre-marking stage to deal with problems and irregularities than at other stages, because this is before the learners have received the actual assessment that they may need to do, the task or the project. So the necessary changes can actually be made without too much effect on the actual assessment process. You also don't affect the learners that much. During the marking stage, that's the second stage, some problems and irregularities can be dealt with easily during this marking stage, but others are a little bit more tricky. And the necessary changes must try and be made before the learners actually receive their results. You want to take as little stress away from the learners as possible, and also make sure you make the necessary changes before then. Of course, the post-marking is the most difficult to change. If you detect that there was a problem, once it's been given back to the learners and the post-marking stage is happening, there's very little changes you can make. But what you can do is you can reflect on and feed back into the next stage and the next time you do these assessments, and therefore make improvements then. So what sort of problems can be detected at pre-marking? Well, the first is at the planning stage. If the planning for the teaching and learning of the required content and skills is not the correct standard or is not adequate, the learners will not be properly prepared. So planning should be done again with constructive advice and guidance on what the teacher should add or change. And if you can do it at that point, it makes a huge difference. In implementation, if the required content and skills has not been taught or facilitated at the correct level or is not adequate, the learners are not going to be properly prepared. Work may have to be taught again or in a more effective way, and constructive advice and guidance must be provided so that the appropriate standards are met. Again, you're helping the learners long before they actually write the task or carry out the assessment task. When we look at the quality of assessment, we've got to give an indication of how the assessment could be improved on by increasing the validity, the reliability, the practicability, and the fairness. Feedback must be provided and the necessary changes made before the learner receives the task. So you want developmental opportunities that are put in place to ensure that teachers continuously maintain and improve the standards and quality. And it's essential to provide feedback on the assessment process before the tasks are given to the learners. So once again, this is essential to follow through. Problems that picked up during marking. Now, if the issue is with the actual task or the assessment tool, changes can be made to ensure that the correct standards are achieved. At this point, you can still change it. If the discrepancy is in the consistency of the judging or the judgments made in the marking process, the papers may need to be reassessed or marks adjusted. Any changes, once again, should be done consistently and applied consistently throughout all the learners. Measures can and should be put in place to ensure that the same problem doesn't occur again. Now, the post-marking, as we said, is the most tricky one because the whole assessment process has taken place. So we need to use this evaluation of the stage to make sure that we feed back so the problem doesn't occur again. So there are two aspects to the post-marking. We could detect a problem in the evaluation of the assessment results, and then, of course, the feedback on the assessment process. So if a problem arises, it's essential to feed back to the teachers straight away so they can make the necessary changes. Continuous feedback must encourage change And you want to continuously improve the teaching, learning, and assessment practices of the teacher, but of course of the school as well. And teachers should be provided with opportunities so that they can develop their skills and improve on what they already do. Teachers and schools should also learn from their mistakes and put measures in place to ensure that the same problems don't occur again, making sure that you're always providing a safe environment that teachers can see where they've gone wrong and want to improve. We need to make sure that these changes are made and that it's effective, because if it's not effective, then you've wasted your time in the moderation process. So please make sure that when you are looking at your moderation process and you find an issue, and you could find an issue at any stage, you might find an issue at more than one stage, that this gets fed back into the process so that next time an improvement can be made. And of course, this all goes towards improving the quality of your teaching in your school, into the way the learners learn and are taught, and of course the way we assess, and most importantly, how the learners do.